Hello and welcome to Principles of Macroeconomics. This is Module 2.1 and today we're going to be discussing gross domestic product. Now let's calculate real GDP. If you recall back from the example that we just, the previous slide, we were saying that our base year is 2011. Okay, so that tells us that for our real GDP calculations, we keep the price constant at 2011. So we use the prices from 2011 for the calculation of the market value in all 3 years. Okay, so by definition, our real GDP and our nominal GDP will be the same in the base year, as we see here. But now, for 2012, we're going to use, for calculators, the price in 2011, $20, multiplied by the quantity in 2012, and that gives us a market value in real terms of $2,100. Same thing for pens. We keep the price as the price in 2011, $5, but we change the quantity to reflect the quantity of pens produced in 2012 with a market value of $17.50. Same thing for paper. Price stays at $10, but the quantity changes to the amount that we produced in 2012, giving us a market value in 2012 of $6,400. We add up our market values of these three goods across, and we get a real GDP of $10,250. Same thing for 2013. We keep the price at 2011, but we change the quantity to the quantity that we produce in 2013. Same thing for pens, and same thing for paper. Price stays at $10, but now production increases to $645. So that gives us new market values reflecting constant prices from 2011, but new quantities from 2013, giving us a real GDP of $10,715. Okay, now we can calculate the changes in real GDP. From 2011 to 2012, we see that the change in real GDP is going to be 10,250 minus 9,500 divided by 9,500, giving times 100%. And that is going to give us a change in real GDP of 7.9%. Now notice 7.9 is much lower than 16.1 because in real GDP, remember when we see the change in real GDP, here we're looking at only a change in quantity produced. We have kept the prices constant and equal to the prices that we see in 2011. So prices don't change, but quantities change. So growth in real GDP shows a real change in production in our economy. Same thing for 2012 to 2013. Change in real GDP is showing us 10,715 minus 10,250 divided by 10,250 times 100% gives us a growth of 4.5%. So we see that from 2011 to 2012, our economy has produced 7.9% more goods. And from 2012 to 2013, our economy has produced 4.5% more goods. Now, because of the differences in nominal and real GDP, we can use these values to understand prices. Remember, with nominal GDP, the prices are changing each year in our calculations. With real GDP, our prices are staying constant each year. So the price level in the economy is giving us a statement of what happens with prices in general. So we know that we're producing millions and millions of different types of goods in our economy. The prices of those goods in 1 year, for some goods they might increase, for some goods they might decrease, for some goods they might stay the same. But if most prices in the economy overall are increasing, we're seeing some inflation in the economy. So we can use the difference between nominal and real GDP to calculate and have an understanding of what's happening in general with prices in the economy. So how do we do this? We use what we call the GDP deflator. And you can see here that the GDP deflator is an index of prices based on nominal and real GDP. It's giving us a ratio of nominal GDP over real GDP times 100%. So let's use our previous numbers to calculate inflation and the GDP deflator. So here you can see the nominal GDP and the real GDP that we have calculated based on the tables that we had in the previous slides. We take the ratio of nominal GDP over real GDP to get the GDP deflator. As you can see, in the base year, the GDP deflator is 100. And in the base year, because nominal and real GDP are going to be exactly the same, we're going to expect the GDP deflator, or the index, to always equal 100. Now, in 2012, we can see that nominal GDP divided by real GDP is going to give us a GDP deflator of 107. So when we look at the change from 2011 to 2012 in the GDP deflator, the percentage change is going to give us a change in the price index of 7.6%. So this tells us that prices in our economy, based on real and nominal GDP differences, have risen by 7.6%. Now, if we look at our GDP, nominal GDP and real GDP in 2013, this gives us a GDP deflator of 117. So if we look at 117 minus 107 divided by 107 times 100%, this gives us an inflation rate of 8.2%. So we see that prices are rising by 8.2% from 2012 to 2013. So we use the GDP deflator, or a price index, to give us a general idea of what's happening with prices overall. Specifically, we can use the GDP deflator to compare across time, across years, to make a general statement about inflation. If the GDP deflator is rising, then that is telling us that prices in general in the economy are rising and the economy is experiencing inflation. Thanks so much for joining me on this segment on GDP.